my first listing was $69,000, and I got it in July, so it was super hot.
Yeah.
There was no electric, and I walked into this house, and there was writing and all over the walls, feces all over the floor.
Wow. Hi everybody, welcome back to another Workout Wednesday. I hope you enjoyed last week's video with Anita Vining and the start to our new year. We are coming with our second week's video with a very special guest out of our St. Augustine office, Stefanie Bernstein.
Hi, Noah.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, glad to have you on. We can go ahead and just straight into the questions. I want to start with your journey in real estate. What inspired you to get into real estate? And also, what has maintained your passion throughout the 23 years you've been?
23 years this month. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. So I started, before I moved to St. Augustine in 2001, I lived in Orlando for 5 years, and I had a corporate job, and on the weekends I found myself going to every open house and just picturing where I wanted to live and what kind of house one day that I wanted to buy. So when I came to St. Augustine, I opened my own business and quickly learned that I was going to need another income.
Yeah.
So I decided to get into real estate, and so did that. It was a lot harder than I thought. But I worked hard every day and didn't take a vacation for the first 5 years.
Yeah.
Worked every lead I had. And it just started flowing, and it just flowed better and better as each year passed by. And now I'm at a point where, around 2012, 13, I just basically decided I was going to work with sellers.
Yeah.
I started out, someone told me, you're always part of the transaction if you have a listing.
Yeah.
So I learned in my first year that's what I wanted to do. So I had to work with buyers in the meantime, and there was buyers and sellers. And then around 2012, it was pretty much just sellers.
Yeah.
And occasionally I work with buyers now again, but very rare.
Cool. Among kind of like your many accomplishments through these now 23 years, what has been the one that stood out and maybe kind of resonated with you in this time? So I guess it was when I hit 10 million, which back in the day, that was a lot of money. Yeah.
Back in the day when I hit 10 million. So when I started in real estate, I was new to St. Augustine. I didn't have any family or friends. And my broker at the time had told me, you're never going to make it if you don't knock on doors or work with FSBOs. Well, I wasn't going to do either one of those because it just was outside my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I don't want people knocking on my door, so I wasn't going to do it to other people.
Understandable.
And I didn't want... I just didn't feel that FSBOs was the right avenue to get business when they're usually unrealistic and they don't typically like realtors to begin with. So I just worked every lead, and I was in an office where most of the agents were retirees. And at the sales meeting, it was a constant joke that I had all the transactions under 100,000, and they would make fun of me. How do you even find something under 100,000? But I worked every lead, and my first listing was our property manager was an REO specialist, so I split it 50-50, and my first listing was 69,000, and I got it in July, so it was super hot.
Yeah.
There was no electric, and I walked into this house, and there was writing and all over the walls, feces all over the floor. every tile had been, hammer had been taken to, and the garage was floor to ceiling garbage. But that was my first birthday sale. Thankfully, the buyer, he just wanted the house, and he took care of all the mess. And there was actually a car under all that garbage in the garage. But anyway, so my first year I did 1.3, which turned into 5 million the second year, which turned into 10. Wow. And when I hit 10, I thought, okay, I've made it in real estate.
So is that kind of the period where you could say, like, this is going to be a career? Because I know you said you had like another business as well. Is that 10 million point of like, okay, like this is getting to be where it's serious? Like, I'm going to do this for a long time.
Yeah, well, I was always full time. I worked every day. There wasn't a day that I did not work. I basically had my husband run my other business, and I would offer advice and stuff. But no, I was working 70, 80 hours a week, every week, and doing everything I could to make a go of it. So
very nice. So I looked through a lot of your testimonials in the research for doing this video, and a lot of people say that you're knowledgeable, you're very charismatic, among many other positives. So with that, how do you build very strong relationships with your sellers?
So I am a very good listener. So I will sit and I will listen, and they usually like to talk. Most of my clients are older, so they're appreciative of someone just to sit there and hear their stories. So when it comes to selling their house, I always find out what's the most important to them. What's the most important to them? What are their, I call them heartburn issues, non-negotiables, things like that. Yeah. And I take that and we come up with a game plan. And whatever that game plan is, I always try at a minimum to meet it, but always try to exceed it. If you exceed whatever their expectations are, then you're always going to come out a winner.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk too about how you approach analyzing and understanding the real estate market. So it's obviously like a very living, breathing thing that is constantly changing, like any market.
Right.
How are you staying, up to date on the market, and then what metrics or indicators are you using to what point would you look at to be like, that would kind of raise your eyebrows or like maybe perk your ears up, something like that?
So I have a very small territory, and I did that on purpose because I like to know everything about everything.
Yeah.
So all my listings, I'd say 95% of them are within a 10 mile radius of my house.
Yeah.
And when I started in real estate, I made it a point to know every single subdivision, the builders. I saw most of them being built, a lot of the newer ones being built, know everything there is to know about the HOAs, every house, their location, their condition, everything like that. So for me, because I do have a very small territory, I do know the inventory quite intimately. So I can speak very knowledgeably to a seller about that. And so what I look at is closed sales, basically.
Okay.
So closed sales drives everything. It doesn't matter what someone's asking for. It's the closed sales that will base a buyer's decision and obviously an appraiser's.
Awesome. So that with that closed sale, so you have a situation where a seller is insisting on an unrealistic price. Is that something that you're using to guide them towards a more reasonable pricing for their home?
Yeah, I always come in with closed sales. I bring the active sales as well, just to see where they want to fall in line. Yeah. But the closed sales determines what the value is. Now, I'm always a little aggressive on the listing side of things because obviously you want to see your market go up in value.
Absolutely.
So I will go through each house with them, and more than likely I've been in a majority of the closed sales, so I can speak to them about each house and why that home sold for that and why I think their home would sell for this. So they either, it's all about facts and knowing your facts, and if you can convey that appropriately, they typically tend to listen, and if they don't, then you got to make a determination whether you want to walk away.
Yeah. Now, I want to switch to the other side of the sale. I know you say you don't work with buyers a lot, but how would you handle a situation where a buyer is lowballing, and how would you maybe educate them to maybe raise the prices that they're wanting to buy it? So
again, you go recent closed sales, what things are selling for. Obviously, you want to get the best price for your buyer, but at some point, if that house is really the house that they want, then by insulting the seller with such a low offer, whatever a seller's bottom line is, it just increased by 10 to 15% for you. So at some point, we look at the numbers, we can explain why we're coming in where we're coming in at. So, and again, have facts as to why, instead of just saying, okay, this is what we're doing. Is what we want, And hopefully the other agent, if there's another agent, can convey that appropriately, where we can keep the negotiations going and the buyer still gets the best deal. Yeah.
So I know we kind of talked about how market conditions shift a lot. What adjustments do you make to your strategies whenever market does shift?
So obviously when the market is slower, that's when you really have to I always say you got to get back to basics. Yeah. So you got to make the phone calls, you got to write the letters, you got to stay in touch. It's a lot more work, obviously. Yeah. And but it's worthwhile. Make the phone calls, definitely. So I'm big about calling people even when you're not in a transaction. So if I'm driving through a neighborhood that, and I sold in there, I'll call them. Or there's a sale that just happened. I'll give them a quick text. Oh, hey, did you see the house down the street just sold for X? Just stay in touch that way, so you're always kind of front of mind.
Now, you talked a little bit before this question about negotiating with another agent or maybe with a seller. Your previous clients had talked a lot about your ability to negotiate in their transactions. Can you share an example of a challenging negotiation and how you achieved a favorable outcome from that?
Okay, so I kind of went back through my last few years of sales, and I'm like, well, I didn't find anything all that challenging. Yeah. I think it's important to know what the seller is expecting and what they just can't tolerate. And if you know that, then you can work around that. And likewise, with a buyer, if it's not your buyer, then you have to have a conversation with the agent. And a lot of agents like to talk, and they'll tell you way more information than you should possibly. You shouldn't probably give to a listing agent, but that's okay. Yeah. I let them tell me. But even if they didn't, I ask them about their buyer. Gotcha. Were they coming from what's important to them, right? Try to find out what their heartburn issues are, so you can do the song and dance and get to a happy place where both buyer and seller are happy, because at the end of the day, you want everybody to be happy in a transaction. Absolutely.
Final question. It's start of the new year. A lot of people are looking to make changes, whether it's in their personal lives or their professional lives. What's the one thing an agent should be doing right now to establish a good start to their year?
So my end of last year, end of 2024, I went on a lot of listing appointments. So for the new year, so I think there's going to be a lot of great inventory coming on the market. Yeah. It's a great time for buyers to buy now. I did actually just have a buyer. Yeah. And I think because things were so slow in 2024 towards the end, the sellers that have been on the market are motivated, you can get your best deals now. Same with the new construction. I don't really do new construction, but I know there's crazy incentives. But I think those are all going to go away come spring, because buyers understand that interest rates really aren't going to go down.
Yeah.
And prices really aren't going to go down. Like that was the expectation last year. They're realizing that's not happening. So if you have a buyer, get them to buy now. And anybody who's thinking about selling, it's a great time to get on the market, because we're going to have a hoppin' 2025.
So yeah, I think so too. So it's a lot of wealth of knowledge from you, and it's great to hear you dispense it some to us. So I just want to thank you again for coming on.
Thanks.
We will kind of have this come out tomorrow. We're filming this on Tuesday. I know it's a quick turnaround, but I will put Stefanie's Instagram handle and Facebook profile name on the screen so you guys can go check her out, check out some of her stuff. But other than that, be sure to tune in next week for another special guest for our Workout Wednesday videos. Until then, we will see you next week. Take care.